So let's go back to 30 years ago, which would be what, 1995?
Yeah.
What was our...
You know, I'm in 1995 to show the Prime Minister out of touch, and that's why he shouldn't be around the country, because I don't know about the country.
Tell him.
In 1995, we paid off the IMF. Omar Davis.
So it's going to be war. Because we cannot allow the people who peddle nonsense, the people who tell lies, we cannot allow them to win.
Blessings, ABR family and viewers. Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl, Isabel Rose. And in this one, Paul Buchanan, who represented the People's National Party, loses his latest bid to overturn Anju Oates' victory in the West Central St. Anju constituency due to what the judge deems as statute of limitation, basically running out. They said the time frame that Paul filed, he ran out of time basically. So when the constituted court rejected his bid, why didn't they stated it at that time? So it was basically a lose-lose situation for Paul Buchanan. As well as we've seen Ralston Hyman, one of the greatest economists in Jamaica, exposes lies told by Anju Oates in the House of Parliament. Please stay tuned for the details at hand. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel. ABR family and viewers, well-thinking Jamaicans, you would have seen me drop a recap of the court battle between a People's National Party candidate Paul Buchanan and Anju Oates for the West Central St. Anju constituency, where Paul applied to the constituted court citing irregularities before and even on the day of election, political victimization, you name it. You've seen him roll out 5 affidavits who gave their account of what took place on the election day, from ballot boxes being late to go to the counting station, and a whole barrage of irregularities. Today would have been the day that Paul Buchanan would have learned whether or not he was on that trajectory still to overturn the September 3rd, 2025 general election. But the judge ruled that Paul Buchanan will no longer be able to continue his path and that they cannot overturn Anju Oates' victory due to time running out. So here's what the article from the Gleaner says. The Supreme Court has dismissed Paul Buchanan's latest attempt to unseat to overturn the election result. Justice Sonia Wynne-Blair, in delivering her decision on Monday, ruled that the application filed by Paul Buchanan was not arguable and was subject to a knockout blow in the law. The court found that the mandatory statutory time period for challenging the election results had expired and that the October 8th judicial review application was futile. The judge said even if the court granted the orders compelling the constituted authority to refer the matter, the outcome would be void because the law prevents the court from extending the time set by Parliament for such electoral challenges. In electoral matters, time is of the essence. Therefore, not only must this court be satisfied that the threshold test for leave has been surmounted, but there must also be an overlay of electoral realities as a matter of law. She concluded that the threshold test has not been surmounted. The constituted authority is a special independent public body created under Jamaica's election laws to protect the integrity of national elections by deciding whether a flawed election should be sent to the election court, which could void results. The statutory period for the constituted authority to apply to the election court to void the taking of a poll is 14 days from the day the poll was taken. So then, the fact that the general election was September 3rd, 2 weeks from that time would have been September 17th. But then, with Paul Buchanan gathering all of his evidence, he filed his application to the court on September 18th, right? Where the constituted court basically reject his application. But what I'm saying there, so, why didn't the court or why didn't the judge in that hearing told him that the statute had run out for the constituted court to have sent over his application to the election court? So when she said them wally pa rigmaroya up and down and back and forth and all of it could have avoided, right? And I would love to know where in the Constitution it gives that clause that from the date of the election, 14 days after, the constituted court would have to be informed and then send over the application to the election court. So it was a big lose-lose situation for Paul Buchanan there, so because the time had run out on him. What can really go so, ABR family? What can really go so well-thinking Jamaicans? Anju Onless untouchable. We have allowed one man to behave as if he is God and to behave as if he is not answerable to anyone. But he steady wants to fight and to prevent social media from speaking, talking about war against misinformation and disinformation when he constantly comes to our parliament and lies through his teeth and lies through his eyes and his whole demeanor and expression. And I would urge the opposition to combat him right away when time he's talking the lies them. Ask for a point of order and stop him in his tracks with the whole heap of lies. Listen to this blatant brazen lie that he told in our parliament. Everything them talk about 20 and 30 years. And I've been saying this even before the election, so them always a talk about in the history of Jamaica and 10 and 20 and 30 years. Right? And they have not been doing anything for the Jamaican people. The man love foreigners more than him love Jamaicans. Listen to that lie here. Ralston Hyman and the Portland Spice TV exposing him over and over.
But here is the problem now, Madam Speaker. How do we borrow? If it were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we would not be able to approach the IFIs. We wouldn't even be able to approach the international community. But
Raleigh, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we couldn't approach the international community. 20 years ago was what? 2005. What was Jamaica's economic position 20 years ago, Raleigh?
20 years ago, we could get money to borrow from the international community. At that time, we weren't even borrowing from the IMF because we paid off the IMF. We never went back to the IMF until 2010, when Anju was the leader of government business in the House of Representatives in the Bruce Golding government. And they never even know which agreement, but them take a full agreement and couldn't live up to the terms and conditions. And the man, they locked out of the international capital market. So since Peter Phillips come now, we can get back and make our name back in the international capital market. And we can tell all of the trolls them, check IMF, check World Bank, check the ratings agency, and make them tell them when this thing started, when Jamaica became welcome back in the international capital market and who started. And while we were doing that, this same foolish Minister of Finance, Anju, them used to say, all we had to pass IMF test and not pass the people's test. Sign anything with the man them tell us to sign. Yeah. That's the history, and them to the tools them can check it on any of the international agencies.
Wait, Raleigh, was there a time outside of that period under Bruce Golding that Jamaica could not approach the multilaterals?
No. So, I want to see what the Prime Minister, our next lie will tell. is about concessional funding. Multilateral funding is always concessional funding because that is where them set up for. IMF money, World Bank money, always money between 1% and 4%, no more than 5%. That's how this matter.
So let's go back to 30 years ago, which would be what, 1995?
Yeah.
What was
you know what I mean, in 1995, to show the Prime Minister out of touch, and that's why he shouldn't be around the country, because I don't know about the country.
Tell him.
In 1995, we paid off the IMF. Omar Davies, PJ Partners paid off the IMF and said, ta-ta. Omar Davies passed 12 consecutive IMF tests. The JLP administration and Mr. Seaga couldn't pass a full IMF program. Rubbish.
Hold on. So the Prime Minister said 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we couldn't approach the multilateral.
What says you, ABR family and viewers? Remember to drop your comments in the comment section. That one you're hot. Let us continue the discussion there. Remember to like, share out the videos. Get this video to at least 10,000 likes. Remember also to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Stay tuned for more videos. Stay tuned for more updates. Big up on yourself. Happy Monday again.